Alright, so as you can see, some progress has been made, although there's a big mess here as well. That's just part of the job, you know, like with any organization project, sometimes you're going to see it get worse before it can get better, and this is something you have to remind yourself of while you're in the midst of it all, as well as like anybody you live with that's dealing with it, because, you know, progress has to be made, and sometimes the pieces just have to be taken apart to be put back together. So there's my philosophy on that. Alright, so what I'm going to show you now is what I did as far as placement. So Victoria's side, my daughter's side, is going to be the craft side. So I thought we need a paper tower because we've got so much paper. It needs to be stored horizontally so it doesn't like peel and curl in the edges. And before I had it like in one of those little cube things in a vertical setup, and you know, there's just so much money that goes into this stuff over time, and you want to protect your investment. So I bought a couple of extra Michael storage craft cubes. I wish I knew the name. I'd have to look at that. So yesterday I put together like 5 new boxes, and most of them were these vertical or horizontal paper storage cubes. So I went ahead and assembled our paper tower, and then I thought about, okay, well, what types of drawers would she need for the different things that she's going to be using. So I went ahead and configured the rest thinking about that. I'll show you once everything's finalized. Right now it's too early, but that's the general gist of what her side's going to look like. Now, that piece that spans the bridge there was originally part of this line, and it is supposed to be a desktop, but I didn't have enough of a width there to secure it properly. So I've decided that what I'm going to do is get another piece of like MDF or laminate or something that measures the width of the cubes, and I'm going to run one solid piece from one end down to the other. And that way, it's one consistent look. It'll look a little bit more custom, and I don't have to worry about the tops of these things getting marked up or beat up, which is nice because my daughter's a little rough on things, as evidenced by the condition of her desk in her room. But we won't show you that because she'll kill me. Okay, so over here, I decided that I am going to do the books on the backs of these cubes. I'm sorry, in the cubes. And the reason I decided not to put them back in the bookshelf is because these cubes just seem so much more sturdier, and I really don't want the same thing to happen again where the bookshelves under the weight started to warp. So that's going to be definitely where they're going to be housed. And then all this is still very temporary. It's going to have to be looked at again once I get the opportunity. Okay, so here's my side. Not really happy with this finalization, so therefore it's not going to be final. I'm going to change this, but it's what was left, and so I kind of, you know, work with what I had. But I think I'm going to rearrange some of these things to make them a little bit more smooth, work a little better for me. But that's what it is, and again, I'm going to use the MDF or laminate piece across the top. Don't look at my relic printer machine, because I'm hopefully to get a new one here shortly. So yeah, that's that, but nothing's going to be finalized yet because I'm still, you know, I still got to be OCD, got to do what I got to do best, which is overanalyze. Okay, so I have here a piece of cardboard. This is actually the original backer for the little Target shelf, and I'm going to use that to go ahead and start painting. I have 2 shelves here that are probably going to be on the wall. They're a little dingy from a few years being in a closet and a little beat up, so I need to restore those and make them fresh. But also, up in this corner, I have these dowels. So these dowels are going to serve as parts for my wrapping paper storage. So those need to be painted, and actually they need to be cut and painted because right now they're too long. So I got my little handy dandy girl saw that I don't have to plug in and worry about. I can use this. It's quite simple. Actually, I really love this a lot. I've used this for a lot of trim cutting. And yeah, so that's what's next. I'm going to cut the dowels to size. I'm going to paint them as well as these shelves. And then while those things are drying, I can start working more on like the nitty-gritty details. And yeah, coming along. I'm really, really happy. I'm just super, super ecstatic about the transformation. And I love the paper tower. Because, I don't know, as a crafter, like one of the things that makes me so happy is paper. Crazy, I know. But anyway, there it is in all its glory. Okay, so for my next step, I'm going to show you how I am configuring these dowels to work for me as wrapping paper holders for my wall display. So what I did was I used a roll of wrapping paper and kind of held it up to it. I wanted a little bit of excess on each side, and I went ahead and cut it. So this piece was already cut from the original because the originals are very, very long, as you can see. So I had 2 for the longer wrapping papers, and I wanted 4 for the shorter since I seem to purchase the shorter ones more often. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to use this right here. So I know a lot of people are probably pretty proficient with power tools. I'm not one of them, and so I have this machine. It's made by Stanley. I got it from Home Depot, and it just allows me to cut things straight and professional, and at angles, you know, when needed. So like, for instance, I did a project where I did a lot of trim work, and this allowed me to get the perfect 45-degree angle and so forth and so on. So what I'm doing here is I've got the ends matched. This is not very scientific, but it works for me. It's very approximate to the point where it's almost scientific. I'm going to line it up with the straight cut, which is the one straight across. So that's about right. Okay, so now that it's in place, I'm going to put my pegs in. These pegs hold the wood that you're working with in place so that it doesn't move around. And as you can see, it aligns it perfectly with the slats and keeps it from rolling. So now I insert my saw to the straight cut. Alright, and this gives me a perfect guide. I just hold this right here far away from the blade for a little more stability and cut. Alright, that would have took a lot less time if I would have been able to use my dominant hand. But the edge is pretty clear, pretty clean. If you get like a couple splinters, you can always take a piece of fine sandpaper to it. And now the dowels have all been cut and are ready to be painted. One of the things that I purchased from the store, if I can find it real quick, yes, here it is, are these little kind of wooden button looking things. Now these are going to be drilled into the edge of the dowel. I'll show you one of the pieces up front. So this right here is kind of like a little end cap. I'm going to drill it into the dowel edge with a pretty small screw. And then this is going to hang up on the wall on a hook. And that's pretty much how I'm going to build it. I got a couple ideas offline, and they're plentiful out there. All this has to be painted, of course. But that's my next step. Okay, so all the pieces have now dried, and I'm going to go ahead and start assembling them. And these are some hooks that I found in the store. They were gold. I painted them white. And basically, I'm going to use these 2 per dowel. It's going to go into the wall, and it's going to sit like this, and it's going to allow for the dowels to get hooked in so that I can store the wrapping paper on the wall horizontally so that it doesn't keep getting messed up by just being shoved into a closet. So assembling the dowels begins. So while I was waiting for my drill to charge, because I accidentally left it off the charger last night, and needed to make sure I had full charge before I could drive the screws into the dowels, I worked on my wall configuration. Now I had it all written out as to what I wanted where, but I had to figure out like where to hang things and what the distance apart would be, because I like things to be kind of exact. So I just did all my measurements while I was waiting. Got a really good idea of where stuff's going to go, and I know it doesn't make a lot of sense looking at it, but I tell you what, this graph paper is awesome. It really just helps to keep a good picture in mind when you're working on it, on like a design. And of course a handy dandy measuring tape is necessary for these things as well. Not to mention that you're going to want to have like a laser level, ideally, for hanging things as well, to make sure that nothing is going to be lopsided. Anyway, just thought I would share that. This is going to go into my binder along with everything else. Alright, this is what I've got done so far on my wrapping paper holder. I'm doing it myself to save a lot of money because the organizers I saw online were just a bit on the pricey side for my taste. And I'm really pleased with the results so far. It's looking super darn cute. I have a total of 6 to do. And so I wanted to kind of show you how I'm doing it in case you haven't already seen tutorials online. Alright, so what I needed to do this project was hooks that can be driven into the wall. Let me see if I can zoom into that a little better. Clear that focus up. Alright, so we got hooks here that came in a box of like 24. I spray painted it white. It came in gold. All this was found at the local Home Depot. I have a laser pointer. This allows me to align the hooks across from one another so that my rod is ran level. I have chalk. Whenever I'm making a mark in the wall after I measure, I use chalk instead of like pen or pencil. And that's because I could literally take my finger and wipe away the mark. So get chalk if you don't already use that. And then of course a soft tape measure. I prefer these over the hard ones for a lot of reasons, but this doesn't have like that dangerous sharp edge, but also it's real flexible for like edges and things like that, like if you need to taper off at an end. I'm sure you can see the benefits of using the soft tape over the long tape. And I like it to be in an actual dispenser because it keeps it from like completely unraveling and falling all over the floor. But that's just my taste. Obviously you can use anything. Also I have a nail. This nail is thinner just by a little bit than this screw. I use this as kind of like a little pilot hole maker. I hammer the nail into the wall, maybe about like a 1/4 inch if even, then pull it back out very carefully and straight as to not damage the drywall around it. And then that allows me to get just enough of a start to where this is easier to screw into the wall. You have to screw it by hand. You have to literally just push on it and drive it in. So those are the tools that I needed. For my dowels, I used hot glue instead of screws. I tried to do a couple of screws and I kept splitting the end caps. So I tried hot glue and so far so good. I did, I put a generous amount of glue on the ends to try to secure it better, but it seems to be holding fast real well. And I'm just super excited so far. I just love that and I can't wait to see the end. Okay, so the rest of my sets of hooks have been driven, and now I can go ahead and hang up the rest of my wrapping paper using those dowels. And this was super easy. It just took some time to make sure the precision was correct, but I think the overall effect and the little bit of money that it cost me is just priceless. And she's done. I love this. This is so exciting. I saved so much money by doing this myself. There's a lot of these online that are pre-made, but you're going to end up spending upwards of $100 and you won't even necessarily get hangers for 6. 6 is obviously a number that I could have expanded upon, but I think it's a pretty good number. It was about how many I had on hand at the time, and I like the amount of space it leaves over the top and the bottom. So anyways, on to the next step. And the next step for me at this point is to paint these shelves. I've already wiped them down, and I've had these for years. And just didn't really ever hang them because they weren't, well, when I bought them, they were wood color and they didn't have hangers on them. So just kind of had them on hand for years, never used them. So when I went to the store, I picked up hardware to hang these. So I'm going to go ahead and attach that first, and then I'm going to paint them, and then they're going to go on the wall on that side. Okay, so the second wall is done as far as the wall placement goes. I tried to center everything to the desks. It's not exactly centered to the wall, but that's because of the corner shelf there. I didn't want the wall shelves to go behind the bookshelf. So what I did was I made it, or I pretended as if all I had to work with was the wall above the desk, and then I centered everything according to that, and I'm pretty happy with it. And it definitely took a long time today. I got to get ready to go to a birthday, so taking a break unfortunately, but hopefully I'll be able to get back to it tomorrow because I'm getting addicted to my project. I know that sounds crazy, but there's like a moment in every project where I feel like I could barely peel myself away from it, and I become very antisocial because I'm like elbow deep in like paint or something.